Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another footy edition of Fourth and Long. It's kind of felt like it's been a little while. My man Donnie, our AFL correspondent, Coach Donnie Hess over here. We got some fun stuff to talk about because not only do we have some good storylines coming out of the AFL recently, but also we just did our fantasy football draft. Fantasy football is really getting underway at this point in time, only a few weeks out from the footy season. So, we're going to talk about that because there's a lot of fun. Fantasy football is fantastic, especially, I do all my American fantasy football. My first time in Australian fantasy football, little different, but I gotta say, Donnie, it's still pretty fun, though.
Oh man, it is great to talk to you, sir. I know I've kind of spun off and did the Donnie's disposals a lot this off season a little bit just before the AFLW season, and I don't know if you want to throw it in, but in a few of my episodes I've thrown in AFLW correspondent as well. But we,
Oh,
we
yeah.
won't get
Well,
we won't get too
it's called
technical
Footy
on that.
Correspondent because if you guys, once we're done here with this show, of course, roll on in because still got plenty of footy content. Coach Donnie Hess's American AFL fan series has been going very strong. We actually have almost all the teams done at this point, so you can go check those out. Actually, I want to put out a challenge to all of you guys. We'll give it maybe till the end of this AFL season, but whichever video for whatever team has the most views, that's going to determine the best fan base in all of Australian football. So get your views in, get your likes in. If you're a Swans fan, you better go like the hell and view the hell out of that and share the hell out of that Swans video. Or if you're a GWS fan, or if you're any other fan of the league, I know the Richmond one is doing pretty strong, and so is the Frio Dockers one. So there's some top competition going there. I want to put that out to all of you guys. Whichever video has the most likes and views will get our Fourth and Long Best Australian Football Fans Award. How's that sound to you, Donnie? Good idea?
That sounds quite interesting. I know so many people have been super interested in the Richmond Tigers one, and that was incredible to be able to talk to Peggy O'Neill. She's an absolute trailblazer, and the fact that she was so good. I'll even tell this a tiny backstory to
Oh, yeah.
this, and Ross even knows this is that the interview that actually went live was actually the second time I talked to her because I forgot to record the first one.
Rookie mistake, Donnie. Come on, man.
Oh,
I remember you texted me
oh,
about that. Not gonna lie, I felt a little bad. I let out a little bit of a laugh because we've all been there.
I laughed myself. I laughed myself. The best part was that she was so nice. She was so nice about it. In fact, she even joked in the instant message that she said, "I'll even give you different answers." So, the best part was she was so great about that, and I've had so much fun doing this series just because I found so many different and unique people. I mean,
It's been
the lady
really good.
one of the latest ones to come out, the Melbourne Demons fan Vadim, who's an absolute awesome story coming from the Ukraine and fighting the Melbourne Demons. And in fact, actually, I'd love to relay this to you. He told me is if you ever need anybody else to hop in for UFC, he is a mixed martial arts lover and would
Ooh.
love to chat with you mixed martial arts. So Vadim on Twitter, I will make sure and send him your way because he did a lot of mixed martial arts. In fact, we after Mike, we talked for almost an hour, just mixed martial arts and stuff like that, which was so much fun for me. He's a huge GSP fan, just like myself. So that was really cool to talk a little bit of footy, little bit of
A little bit
footy,
of
and then talk a
everything.
little bit of MMA. I know it was incredible, but no, I've had a ball. The only thing I'm a little frustrated with is I still don't have a Gold Coast Suns fan. So for any of those listening to this episode, if you know any Gold Coast supporters, please send them my way.
Or if you
Even
are a
if
Gold Coast supporter too, even
yeah, I
better.
know. Yeah, Gold Coast supporters. I just need one.
Not a lot
I'm
of them,
having
huh?
some.
I feel like
Unfortunately, they're growing. They're growing. I know. I'd love to be able to get them a little bit of exposure because I think there's with both the men's and the women's, they're young clubs that I think they're going to eventually become teams that are going to be good. So, but I'm having a ball with that, and I'm working on a few other projects currently right now. I can't give too much away. In fact,
little
I've got
trade secrets.
yeah, I know. I've got a really, really good one for my next AFL round that I'm really looking forward to chatting with, but I don't want to give it too much away
Hey,
too
it's all
much.
good.
So,
Because you want to know what that means? Just follow you at Coach Johnny Hess on Twitter. Follow us at Fourth Long Radio on Twitter for all your updates because that's your one-stop shop right there. Also, check out thefourthandlong.com/AFL for all your footy needs. And without further ado, Coach, let's get into some fantasy football because
Oh
With
boy.
just my draft, I think here's my biggest thing with this, because when it comes to in like drafting, it was pretty similar to American fantasy football. My
Mhm.
biggest thing is, and even very so in American fantasy football, certain positions get drafted in certain rounds, and that also does vary based on your league and what the other people draft. So I had
Mhm.
no idea what this league was going to draft. I hardly knew what position to go first. I was going with the midfielders because hey, those are the most points. Trying to throw some ruckman defense in there, but I just had no idea. It's even worse with a brand new league, brand new people. I don't know their habits, so I was just kind of going off of because I think I was like pick number 8 or 9 out of
Mhm.
12, so I was able to kind of see where the field was going. But to me, that was kind of like my biggest issue being new to this one.
Yeah, I mean, this is my first time doing it too. I mean, I've been wanting to try fantasy footy. I'm not a big fantasy sports person,
Mm,
especially here in the States, because I guess because I watch it so much, it's really weird for me to want to cheer against some of the people that I know.
it's
So
weird.
it's really
It's
it
weird.
is. It's a really weird sensation. But I'd always wanted to try it. And Docker Man on Twitter, who's an incredible follow and a nice fan of ours as well. So shout
Shout out
out
to
to him.
him. Shout out to him. He's
Oh
fan
yeah,
freaking tastic. I love the
he's
man.
he's he's absolutely awesome. He arranged the league. In fact, this league has had so much fun just getting started. It's changed. It's had two
Well,
or
which
three.
league? The first one or the second one?
Oh man, that was incredible. Fact, little tip on this, and I know he's gonna laugh a little bit when he hears this, but this draft that actually we're talking about was actually the second draft because the first draft the timing was off. In fact, myself, Ross, and then Jameson, my Geelong interview, were the only three actually on the draft on time. So it was kind of a really weird one because the draft changed to about 3:30. It changed to it was basically 3:30 p.m. our time, which was about 2 a.m. Perth time, which is where some of the other Australians who we were with were drafting. But yeah, I noticed that too, that many the drafts is weird just because of the fact is you don't know where kind of everybody's going to
No.
go. The ruck and the midfield tends to be the higher points because a lot of these leagues are it's disposals,
Mm-hmm.
it's tackles, it's different stuff like that. But I know that they with several of them they're trying to add spoils and different stuff to kind of even it out because normally defenders and forwards sometimes don't always have the highest points.
Yeah.
So you'll get people that'll draft midfield forwards and put a lot of midfield forwards as their forwards
You
to
know, I
gain
got some of those.
points. Yeah, I know, and I noticed
I
that
got some of them
especially.
as my reserves. I got a couple midfield forwards as my reserves just to play around with those a little bit.
Yeah, so definitely if you get a chance, put those guys in the forward line because if they do get shifted into the midfield, it's definitely going to make your racking up points. It'll be fun. So
Kind of like when
I'm
I was able to have Taysom Hill, an American football player for the Saints. He was he's or at least for a week he was listed as a tight end, but he's really weird. He plays almost every position. If you never see him play,
mm-hmm.
it's extremely weird,
Yeah.
but it's extremely impressive. But I had him in the tight end spot, and he was playing quarterback that week, so I was able to to get a
Oh
few extra
boy.
points I probably shouldn't have, but
Yeah, definitely for sure. And that's this it's going to be really interesting because I know that you myself I know there's a couple other guys I know on Twitter who are Americans who are joining this league and I'm not sure how many of them play fantasy. So it's going to be quite interesting to see
yeah.
that plus the fact that the teams lock at like 3 a.m. sometimes our time is going to be quite interesting because
I'm
we're
gonna
going to have
go
to
to
keep
bed, cross
people.
my fingers before the round. That's all I'm gonna do.
Yeah, exactly. There's going to be a few rounds. There's going to be a few rounds where it's like I almost feel like I got to wake up at like 2:45 a.m. to double check my team and make sure that
Right?
nobody gets injured or reserved out, so they're not going to play. So it's definitely going to be interesting. But I'm thoroughly looking forward to it. I'm. It's not for money. We're playing for fun. We're going to have. It's
Playing
going to
for
be a
no,
kick.
it's
We
for
get to learn.
honor. It's for honor, Donnie.
Oh yes. Oh yes.
I want to be able to my first full season of Australian football, mind you, is coming up because I joined by halfway through last season. So I'm looking
Mm-hmm.
forward to that. And also my first year in Australian fantasy football in a
Mm-hmm.
league that isn't mine. I want to win. I want to be the American that takes over.
You just don't want to be the wooden spooner. You don't want to be the one at the bottom. Okay.
Yeah, no, either
We will see.
no, either I want to be first or I just want to not be last. Those are the two most important things in fantasy football.
Oh, pretty much. You either want to be you either want to be first, or you don't want to finish last. It's one of those two.
Yeah.
I can handle a third or fourth place finish, right?
Right. See, the thing is here though, as
Oh.
so I got asked for fantasy football for the finals with this
Hmm.
one. Does it work the same way as the actual AFL finals work? That kind of playoff bracket?
I'm definitely gonna have to talk with Greg. I'm pretty sure that the finals are actually gonna start earlier because with the finals teams slimming down
Yeah,
to
you
eight
got to
teams,
have.
not
Well, it's like
everybody, you
American
kind of
football
have to,
ending.
yeah,
The
yeah.
like the last week is of the championship is on the last week of the regular season, so it's gonna be like
Yep.
that. I just wonder if it's the are we doing the top 8 out of the 12, and are we doing the whole format with the top 4, then the bottom 4, the 8? I
I gotta
think.
I gotta double check. I'm not exactly sure myself on the finals thing. I think he put an 8-person finals, but I'm not sure. I know that it was a discussion in our group, which was quite interesting, having 4 Aussies and a couple of Americans in there because it was quite entertaining. In fact, you kind of miss some interesting banter at the draft. I know you had your UFC to watch, but
Yeah, I
there.
was sorry, man. I was doing
Oh
working
no,
double
you're
duty
good.
that night.
You're not a problem. It was just it was really funny when you had guys like you had guys that were getting ready for like their draft pick was like 2 picks later and somebody would take somebody that they had planned on taking. So you got a few choice words thrown at each other.
Oh,
Nothing too
I'm well
bad. Oh, it
aware.
was hilarious.
Well aware. That's what happens. Oh, especially like my main fantasy football league with my boys. Shout out to the Dirty Dozen. We're
Hmm.
really cutthroat because we like to win and we don't like to lose. And I'd be lying if there was at least a little bit of a physical altercation one of these times together. All out of love,
Oh
but man,
boy.
fantasy football gets intense, but I love it. I'm so down. Also,
Oh
I'm
boy.
looking forward to this because, admittedly, it will keep me more on track and trying to watch every game this season too. So,
Definitely for sure. And in fact, actually, one of the things that I've discovered
mhm.
going into it with my AFLW is that they actually started a website for AFLW fantasy
Oh,
footy, which quite interesting for me. I actually hopped on just to give it a try, and it's a little bit different. The financing is a little bit different when it comes to it, and I think the scoring even is a tiny bit different,
mhm,
just because of you have less players on the field, little bit shorter quarters.
mhm.
But I'm having a ball with that because I think it's really helping me learn some of the ladies' names really quick. I knew I came into this year going, I really wanted to help the league with doing AFLW reviews and stuff
Which
like
you've
that. So
been
I think
going
that's
fantastic. You check that out. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, anywhere you get your podcasts. Donnie has been rocking and rolling with that one. And we got is it round 4 coming out now, a
yep,
little later this week. So that
yep,
season's
round
flying by too.
yes, round 4, and with a very familiar face from from the AFL US fan series, and my co-host, my rotating co-host, which I'm absolutely loving. I've had my first 3 weeks have been great. I've had a couple of USAFL alumna who I know quite well, and Tara Silky and Drea Casillas, and then my man, one of my cool follows on Twitter, Mr. Gil Griffin, who's written a footy book and is actually writing for
That was a fantastic
footyology.com.au.
interview. That was one of my favorite ones that you've done so
Oh
far.
yeah, and he came in week 2 and he was awesome. He was a great talk. And this week I have actually one of my former interviews. Since this will come out a little bit after it has come out, maybe is Miss Alyssa Zijan, my Port Adelaide fan. She hopped on for me this week, which she was a blast to talk to again. And so yes, it's just been a ball to do this. I've got 5 more rounds to go, and then the finals. I'm so looking forward to it.
It's gonna be a good season. I could feel it. I could feel it right now. But Donnie, like I said at the beginning of the show, we're not only going to talk to a little fantasy football, but we're going to get into some big storylines that are coming out of footy recently. And I think the first one we gotta start with is the one that either you love it or you hate it. And if you love it, you're part maybe 1% of any footy fan I've ever seen. Because we gotta talk about the new rule that they put in. Of course, we learned about this a little bit back, and even just by hearing the explanation of the rule, we all thought, what the hell is this? What's the point of this? Why are we changing up footy again? And there's outrage from fans and players across the league and across not only Australia but also in America as well, because us fans were not happy with it either. And so we got to see the whole staying still on the mark rule, of course. And we got to see a glimpse of it in action as Essendon was doing a little bit of a scrimmage game recently. And it's stupid. It's I don't know what to say. It's a joke. It's a joke. What's the point of this rule?
I don't I honestly this is one of the many times that I think we're tinkering with the toy far too much. I don't understand it. I mean, it literally makes the person standing on the mark look like an absolute muppet. I mean, it's absolutely hilarious because it's basically the old ability for the man on the mark. He could move anyways as long as he did not encroach the mark. So he, as long as he didn't go forward from where the mark was taken, he was fine. He could go right, he could go left, he could go back, he could jump up and down, he could do a little polka, he could do whatever he wanted.
Can't even
Okay.
move laterally with him now.
Yeah, but now, as Ross just kind of said, is that basically you're kind of a plant.
You
You have to
literally have to
stand
stand
there
still.
until the ref yells play on. You can't go right, you can't go left, you can't back up, you cannot move. You are basically statued still. But the problem that I see with this rule is that many referees are far too slow in yelling play on, so the
Mm-hmm.
man who catches the mark can get at least 3 to 4 meters away before he yells play on.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy standing there literally looks like an idiot because he might as well not even be there. Like, you almost don't even want to put a man on the mark on some of these positions
There's no point.
because there's nothing he can do. I
No.
mean, he can jump up once the guy kicks it, but with the league being much more run and gun with the handballs out the back or passes right to the left, literally he's useless because if one play on until the play on is yelled, he's stuck there. So it really is. I'm I understand that they're trying to make the game more viewable.
Well,
They're
they
trying to make,
implemented this rule is a way to the way they're kind of trying to make up their the explanation for this rule is that they're trying to increase scoring because in 2019 it did fall to a 52-year low in scoring, but with this rule, no, this isn't the move.
uh,
This
the
isn't the
one
right.
I understand the explanation. The explanation has two flaws. A, last year, what was one of the big things that happened? They shortened the quarters. Okay, they shortened the quarters.
Yep.
Okay, and we were playing in COVID times with no fans. So you have no fan supports. You have no rush of energy. You have no rush of blood. You have no pressure in that situation. I hate making changes on a unique season like they did last year. I
Well,
really think they jumped the shark, as the Australians like to say on this
Well,
one. I
it's
don't
making
think it's a
changes
great idea.
for the only purpose of making changes I doubt this actually positively contributes in any fashion to the game. If anything,
Okay.
this is just only going to increase player frustration, fan frustration, and make these officials not want to be there because they're only going to get yelled at for enforcing a stupid rule. Which, by the way, if you move, that's a 50-meter penalty. So
Mhm.
it's nothing slight. It's nothing slight.
No, and unfortunately, it's already a talking point amongst the league. Is the refereeing has been inconsistent at times, and I understand that because the holding the ball rule, unfortunately, again, will open a can of worms here. Clarko says something last year, and all of a sudden now the AFL responds like their hair is on fire, and everything went haywire from there instead of leaving it the way it was. And
Mm-hmm.
this is another one of those. It's like we're throwing the baby out with the bathwater way too much. Just leave stuff alone. And this is a frustration that I've had. Let me soapbox for just a couple of
Get on your
seconds. And
soapbox.
I can
That's what
understand.
we're here for.
Okay. I am sick and tired of every single professional sport that I watch, no matter here in the States or even in the AFL, that their first complaint is we need scoring. Coming from Coach Hess here, and I don't care if you get offended. No, we don't. We need better players playing the game correctly.
Defense is cool too.
Exactly. I'm so frustrated by this. Again, maybe it's the coach in me. It really is. But stop messing up the game. Stop stuffing the game just to get more scoring. More scoring does not make better football. I know you're an NFL guy. I'm sorry. The LA
Defense is
Rams.
cool too. I love a good
It,
defensive
it,
matchup. Come on.
just I'm going to say this, and again, NFL fans that listen to this, I'm not trying to bash your sport, but I'm going to say this right now. The LA versus Kansas City game that ended 56 or 48 to whatever that was, the Monday Night Football game. No, that was not the greatest game of football. That was the worst defense I've ever seen played in my life. I'm
Well,
sorry.
I will pump the brakes a little bit because we did see like 3 or 4 defensive touchdowns that game. But
Okay.
I understand. I 100. I don't want to see a shootout most of the time. I don't want to see a 50-49 game most of the time. I like defense. I appreciate defense. I'm an old school kind of guy too because when I watch football, and especially when I was coaching football, I love a good smash mouth run football team. Stay between the tackles. Give me dive. Give me power. Give me trap. Give me ISO. Okay, I love that stuff. No, it's all about toss sweeps, jet, or it's all about tosses, pitches, jet sweeps, maybe a quarterback option with no defense. I mean, come on, man. I know I'm old school. I know I sound like a little old man on my rocker on the front porch, but where's my smash football again? Damn it.
No, I'll say this, and I've told you this a few times on Twitter, man. Become a fan of the Iowa Hawkeyes because we still play that type of football here at the
That's why I
University
like
of
the
Iowa.
Hawkeyes. That's why I used to be a huge Stanford football fan too. Because what we
Oh
do,
yeah,
you put as many people on the line of scrimmage as possible. You
put three
overload the
tight ends.
side. Give me 3 tight ends on one side. Have the backside just having a guard, not even a tackle, and you run the football.
I love it. No, we'll get back to the sport that we were originally
Yep.
talking about.
Back on
No,
topic.
I'm again. I understand the argument, but the issue that I have is that changing the sport to get the occasional fan that puts their phone down for 10 seconds to see the footy and then go right back to their phone is not a fan I want. I want a fan that's going to have more than an investment than 30 seconds on the dollar. Okay. I
Mm-hmm.
don't. That very is much frustrating to me that these rules are being changed for not regular footy fans. They're being changed for people that have the attention span of a gnat. And that's the most frustrating part.
The way to sum this up, Donnie, is that change for the sake of change is not healthy and it's not something you should be doing. If something needs to be changed, if there's a legitimate problem, go ahead, change that problem. But there's not a problem here. There
Mhm.
isn't a legitimate problem here, so don't change what you don't need to. Don't make a paycheck. Don't have some fun with the rules if you don't need to. It's only going to backfire and make things worse. And I don't know if there's anything else that could be said about this topic. Otherwise, it's just dumb.
Is
It's just dumb.
beating a dead horse. I understand the changing of the man coming from the backside to hop on the mark because
Mm-hmm.
it's a way to deter the people. So I understand that part of it, but the rest of it just you're making so much more of a problem than you are solving one. You're adding 10 issues down the line than you're correcting one. It's not. I don't see the constructive part of it
I can't
personally.
wait for this rule to be eliminated once the season is over. Fingers crossed.
Round one, I'm hoping this thing gets about 6 or 7 50s just so then the AFL goes whoop, bye bye.
If only we
I'm
could be so
hoping.
lucky, Donnie. If
I
only we
hate
could be so
saying it.
lucky.
Oh
Don't
boy, here we go.
don't hold your breath on this one. And
I
going
won't.
from some kind of really annoying news, let's talk some low fun speculation, to be honest, because even though this might not happen for 2 years or so, it's always fun to speculate, let's be honest. And Donnie, let's talk about maybe your Sydney Swans possibly getting one of the better players in all of footy. Dustin Martin is going to Sydney, and it's all but confirmed. Maybe?
Oh boy, talk about one of those that's like talk about one person saying one thing and the entire AFL media just jumping all over this. Okay, so
It's
I'll
all about
set
the
the scene.
headlines, Donnie.
So I'll set the scene here. Dusty Martin's agent was recently interviewed by, I can't remember who it was, but they basically had discussed how Dusty has not signed a new contract and his contract ends in 2 years. And one of the things peculiarly that he had stated was is that the manager stated that Dusty enjoyed Sydney and that he thought personally Dusty could play another 5 years and that he maybe would like to play in Sydney
Now, do we know if Dustin has
for
any
part of that time.
ties to Sydney? Because we know
He
more than any other sport, Australian football players love to play in their hometown.
he did live in Sydney for a bit. Most of his family does is more connected to New Zealand since his dad was extradited out of Australia and
Mm.
cannot come back into the country.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, unfortunate. Well, he's had some issues with the law, shall we
Ah,
say? So he was,
gotcha.
yeah, so he was deported out to New Zealand, and unfortunately, it was one of the other things that in 2017, when Dusty won his first championship, there was discussions with the Australian government to let his dad come back for the championship celebration. The Australian government basically said, no, they,
Now, what do
yeah,
you gotta do to to do something so illegal? You get kicked out of what was the land of convicts.
I haven't dove into it. I don't know, but if I remember correctly, even before COVID, Dusty would have a usual trip to New Zealand to go see his father and
Mm.
see some of the family. But no, so here's kind of the tie-in that many people are saying is not only does his manager say that he wants to play for Sydney, but if you look at the contracts,
Mm.
Buddy Franklin's contract ends the exact same day that Dusty's does. So if Buddy retires, this now leaves a ton of money for Dusty to have if Dusty were to come up and sign for Sydney after Buddy, where they're assuming, and we all know what assuming does to people. We won't say it on the podcast because this is a nice, clean podcast. Is that they're assuming Buddy will then retire once he is done. So his finances then go back into the club. So then that money can then be used to bring Dusty up to Sydney.
Hmm.
Now, as you and I discussed off mic, Brendan Gale, the kind of CEO of Richmond, has already tried to put the kibosh to this, but unfortunately, until Dusty's signature is on another Richmond contract, this one's going to linger.
Yep.
As a Sydney Swans fan
Yeah.
personally, it would be fascinating to see it happen because I think they're still part of the Sydney audience that likes having a superstar on the roster. The
Because you
previous
don't really
couple,
have that right now, do you?
well, if you take Buddy out of it,
Hmm.
Sydney is a very young up and coming
Yes.
team with a couple of minor superstars, but a lot of times because Melbourne tends to be where the main part of the footy media is, many times they don't get the accolades that some of the Melbourne teams do,
Mm.
some of the Western Australian or some of the South Australian teams do, just because they don't have the footy bed like we had discussed in the first ever episode.
Yeah.
Queensland and New South Wales are
Which,
the
of course,
rugby.
real quick, don't mean to interrupt on it, but I just want to say thank you for that for anyone that's tuned in because at least on YouTube, we've broken 20,000 views on that video and
Oh man,
hundreds and hundreds of comments. So it's
that is
really been fantastic to see all that support. We love you so
that
much for that.
that is absolutely awesome. I did keep track of that. I'm so proud of that, and the fact that this has led to this great partnership
Oh,
on
it's
this
been
podcast
fantastic, Coach.
that I think it's a mutual respect and admiration for both of us. We've both
Oh, yeah.
brought each other a lot of great things.
Real
But
quick, I just want to bring it 21,712 views, 316 comments with 377 likes. And I'm going to say that it's 5 Richmond fans that disliked it. Maybe because I said I hate Richmond. Some one of those things.
oh man, either it's
Which
either it's that
I don't. It was an exaggeration. I just don't like Tom Lynch.
again, the Richmond Army in Richmond has had very, very, very interesting lifestyle, shall we say? But actually, so me as a Sydney fan, I,
Mhm.
I wouldn't mind Dusty being up there, but I'm not going to sit here and say yes, I want him. No, I'm gonna hold judgment on this. In fact, actually, we didn't talk about this. Have you heard about the shakeup at Collingwood?
I have been trying to keep track of that. Would you want to go a little more in depth into that one for us?
Well, okay. So this is not so much about footy on the field. This is more about kind of the club in and of itself.
Which is still
Unfortunately,
important part.
well, unfortunately, like we've kind of noticed here in the states a little bit is there have been a lot of issues with systemic racism,
Yeah.
um, and unfortunately, with Collingwood, a former player, Lumumba, who at the time when he played had his name changed to a more kind of, shall we say, normal with exclamation.
Yeah.
And he after he retired, he went into his family history and kind of embraced his African heritage and came into it. Well, recently in the last few years, he's been really kind of calling out the club on its lack of push on making sure that people of other races are treated fairly.
Mm.
He basically a massive say of systemic racism. Well, Collingwood, after this, decided to have an independent group go through the club, do some investigations, and to see what they would find. Um, it had been rumored and actually had come out in the last couple of months previously to recording date that President Eddie McGuire was planning on retiring at the end of the year after the season was over for the smooth transition of power to the next. Well, unfortunately, the Get Better report from Collingwood came out, was leaked, was eventually came to the Collingwood board, so the Collingwood board could go through it. Well, unfortunately, before they could make any changes, the report was leaked to the
Of
media.
course it was.
So as a way to try to get ahead of it, the board and good old Eddie McGuire got on to a press conference. Eddie McGuire, in his utter brilliance, decides that the first thing he's going to say after talking about this leaked thing, which basically said that the Collingwood Magpies did have issues with systematic racism for the previous decade,
Mhm.
and gave them 20, I think something over 21 different actionable items to change at the club. The first thing that Eddie McGuire says in the press conference is, "This is a great day for the Collingwood Football Club." I'm sorry, that was the most tone deaf thing I've ever heard in my life.
Give him a PR agent, damn it. Or if he
And
did have one, either fire them or
unfortunately,
make him actually listen to that PR agent.
this is not the first time that Eddie McGuire has said something either in a racism issue or in a personal
Let's just say
personal
Eddie's
issue.
had some history
He's
with
had,
these
shall we
things.
he's had a few gaffes, shall we
Is
say. He's had a few brain fades or rushes of blood, as the Australians like to say.
that what we're calling it?
So yeah, unfortunately. So because of that, a firestorm of media hit all over him instead of about the actionable report. So, Eddie, as a way to try to damage control both for the club and for himself, he then resigns less than a couple weeks later. This was kind of also brought on because the day after that infamous press conference, 260 AFL players, AFLW players, the netball team, and former players of each of those all joined in for a joint letter apologizing both to the people and to fellow Collingwood people that had suffered issues with the systematic racism. Now, Eddie has now walked away. Unfortunately, it's one of those. It's sad to see somebody who did so much. Again, I'm gonna this is going to sound really weird, but
Mhm.
let me roll it back a little bit.
Yep.
He has done a lot for the club, even with his issues of his mouth opening, words coming out, but his brain obviously not knowing that they were probably not a good idea. Again, so I feel bad for it that a guy that had done so many things for the club will end his career kind of in a travesty. But
Mhm.
again, unfortunately, his record is not exactly perfect, shall we say. And for me, one of the reasons that I did not discuss this on the Donnie's Disposals AFLW stuff was because I felt that there wasn't a lot of oxygen needed to be put to this. This one got beat to death pretty badly, unfortunately. So I wanted to see if you had seen that. I
Yeah,
know
no, I
wouldn't be
have, and it's a
surprised.
really, it's almost a tricky situation with this one, isn't it? There's
Yeah.
because like you kind of brought up a great point because if we take away this issue, let's just call it
Hmm.
issue,
Oh yeah.
He's been really good for the club. He's been
Mm-hmm.
he's been a really important piece of that club's history.
Mm-hmm.
But the only problem is you got this issue, and it's not that small of an issue.
And
with
it's
the,
not the first time either,
not the
unfortunately.
yeah.
And that's the saddest part about it.
So
And but this does solve a few problems too, because there were many people, because of his media, because he was doing the hot breakfast, he was calling footy games, different stuff like that. There
mhm.
were a lot of people saying that he had conflicts of interest all the time. So the fact that now he's stepped down as president of Collingwood, and that he's just doing his media stuff and some of his media obligations now,
I think
this
this is
does
net
kind of
positive.
take this does kind of take away that conflict of interest
Yeah.
argument. I honestly think he's not going to be doing much calling this year, just because I think many of these are going to want to let him kind of let this die
Yeah, I
down,
think you
let
lay
Collingwood
low,
get through this
you let the
year.
fire die out, and then you bring him back next season when hopefully people, well, at least for his case, hopefully people just forgot about this, and then we just move on with our lives.
Yeah, let it blow over. Maybe let him blow off a little bit of steam.
Yeah,
Let him do a few things, maybe personally, that to maybe fix a few things, and hope that he comes back in a better light. So, which I completely understand, but
yeah.
I don't know.
Let's live and learn.
this has been an off
Yeah.
season of so much controversy. It's really kind of baffling to
Well,
me.
between coaches sleeping with, having affairs, and then Richmond, you have been from in season having fights at strip clubs to out of season having coaches with affairs. It's an interesting club, Donnie. I'll tell you that much. It's
Well, and the funny part about it is his was this. He was this is Coach Hardwick was actually the second um, coach this year to have his wife either
that's
leave him or him leave his wife,
that's right.
because back to the previous topic, Nathan Buckley also left his wife in the off season. And I haven't dove into that one. That one wasn't the media firestorm that Hardwick's was, especially considering the person that he was having the affair with was a member of the club. At one time, it was a physio. I later found out it might have actually been somebody in the footy department that is now working with the women.
You, I
So
gotta tell you
yeah.
that I wasn't expecting this sort of drama from footy. To be honest, it's at times it at least rivals like American football. If and a lot of time there's actually more drama coming from this sport than there is in American football, which is it kind of it's taking me for a loop. It's taking me for a loop for sure. I
Oh,
love it though
it was
because
fun. It was a
sport
very interesting off season. I know we've had a few instant messages from there. Just I
just a
was like,
few.
did you see this? It was great.
Well, sometimes I see I'm like, wait, is that real? Is that real? I gotta hit you up because you gotta confirm it for me. It's just
Yeah, I always go through the AFL site, or the AFLW site, when any of that stuff goes on. And actually, to go off this, I know this is normally AFL, but you have to, when you get a chance, go on Twitter.
mhm.
The indigenous jerseys for the AFLW
Oh,
have come out, and
those are
some
fantastic.
absolutely elite. I put a tweet out there. I don't know if I can choose my favorite, because there's so many really good ones. I'm loving so many of them.
Uh,
So I'm looking forward to Indigenous Week. Indigenous round is this round. So I'm really looking forward to this, because there are some absolutely cracking games. Please check out the AFLW 4 round review, which will have our round 5 preview. Some
mhm.
really good games this week going into AFLW. And just to go off that, um, for your audience, please keep supporting the AFLW. These girls are playing so much better footy each and every round. These players are getting better and better and better. The games are more exciting. We've already had several upsets, and over the last couple of weeks, the ladder is starting to kind of shape a little bit going into it. I am thoroughly looking forward to it. Please, Ross, if you get a chance, please watch some
Yes,
of these
sir.
lady games. AFLW.com, if I remember correctly, is actually playing free games.
Ooh,
So you'll
gotta
have to
check that
check
out
out.
then.
And
And Donnie, to
if you
answer
need to
your
know
question though,
any
you weren't.
times, please let me know.
Yes, sir. You weren't able to pick a favorite. I'm gonna tell you my favorite right here. My favorite AFL Indigenous round Guernsey was hands down the West Coast Eagles. Love that one. And with this one,
That's a good one.
I think I'm really feeling Carlton's actually.
Hmm.
I'm digging that one. I'm digging. Well, of course, my bias one is the GWS one's always going to be the best one, hands down,
Hmm.
because anything that the GWS does is the best, especially when it comes to Sydney. I mean, you're a Sydney fan, but we all know Greater Western Sydney is better than normal Sydney because it's greater. Duh. So
The trash talk starts and the season hasn't even begun in the AFLW. This is
you
great.
bet.
Oh, this is awesome. Well, that's okay. If I wanted to throw it back and go, well, our two clubs had a scratch match for our under 17 and under 19 women's, and guess what? The Swannies pulled out both of them. So
That doesn't matter. It was a scrimmage when the real
they're
one.
they're practice matches. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
We kind of have a discussion in the AFLW 4 round review about kind of what our thoughts are on, since Port Adelaide and Sydney, the two fan bases that Alyssa and I are on. We discussed, are we in the do we want our teams to come in this year, this up next couple of years, or do we want to wait and let the talent come in? And if you want to hear kind of our thoughts on that, please check that out. But no, if you do get a chance, watch some of these women. There are some absolutely awesome. In fact, my favorite one, I don't know if you've listened to it, the best surname I've ever heard for a footy player is a player by the name of Bonnie Too Good. Bonnie Too
Oh,
Good.
that's
She
so
plays for the
good.
Western Bulldogs, and she's so good. She's too good.
So we have the best names in footy right now for the women's is Too Good. We got Bonnie Too Good, and then hands down for the men, it's going to be Dangerfield. Those are the
Oh
two best
yeah.
names in footy right now, hands down.
Oh, Patrick Dangerfield was
When I first
such
heard
an
that name
absolutely awesome.
Dangerfield, even now with Too Good, I thought that was a nickname. I thought Patrick Dangerfield. I thought that was a nickname, but no, that's just a perfect
Nope.
name.
That's his legal name. Nope. Miss Bonnie Too Good plays for the Western Bulldogs, which our American friend Danny Marshall plays for. In fact, they've won their last two straight in a row and are
Oh yeah.
going for a third this week. So
Ooh.
the Doggies are playing pretty well in the
Hey,
AFLW.
watch out for the Doggies to come
Oh
finals.
yeah,
Okay.
they have an absolute superstar in Miss Blackburn, their midfielder, who is an absolute gun. I mean, she's mighty. She's little Miss Mighty Mouse. She's everywhere on the footy. She's so much fun to watch. Miss Ellie Blackburn, absolute gun, absolute gun.
Hey, Donnie, how about we wrap things up with this show by finishing with one last story from the men's of the Doggies, because they're kind of shoring up their midfield with some recent acquisitions, and they're really gonna help themselves. They got really close to making the finals last year. They were only about a couple games out, I believe. So they were right there trying to make a late push. I only remember that because I was worried that they were going past GWS. They didn't pass them, but GWS didn't make the finals anyway, so it's not like it matters. But adding Adam Treeler, keeping Josh Dunkley, and also getting Marcus Bonapelli, this is they're making some moves and they're making a push, and I feel like there's a really good chance to actually make the finals with this roster this season.
Oh, I look at it, and we kind of discussed this a little bit after the free agency period.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, the Western Bulldogs right now step into this season with, by far, in my opinion, the most star-studded depth midfield in the entire competition, and that's crazy to
Is
say
this the best
sometimes.
Doggies team we've ever seen?
Oh, well, the 2016 did raise the flag, even
Yeah.
though they did come from seventh. But this team is legit in the midfield, to the point where you could almost move a Marcus Bontempelli up to small half forward to
Mm-hmm.
be able to help that out. But the other question is, they get the number one overall draft pick in Jamara Ugle Hagen, who many people are comparing to a young Buddy Franklin as well. So
That's a good comparison.
you add Adam Trelaw during the Collingwood fire sale, which the Collingwood offseason continues to just get better and better, as we just kind of discussed.
uh,
Um,
we covered that whole debacle
oh
in our
yes,
draft breakdown. That was a
see,
lot of
see,
fun.
so you add an elite midfielder in Adam Trelaw to an already elite midfielder, Bontempelli, Dunkley. You've already got one of the best up and coming ruckmen in Matt English. You got some great backline players. This is a Doggies team that legitimately can make the finals and can be a foil to the Brisbanes, to the Richmonds, to the Geelongs, to the Port Adelaides, if they get the right way to go. Like I can't wait till we do our AFL our preview,
Oh
which I'm
yeah, that's
hoping
going to be
we can
coming
get
out
through,
very soon for all of you guys. Keep an eye for that.
because picking the 8 this year is going to be so interesting because there's so many teams that were in the 8 last year that got better. And it's
Yes.
scary to say that, but I think several teams got better. And I think even some of the teams that are outside the 8 got better. I think this year's footy, hopefully with no hubs and everybody's going to be at home.
Back to
The
normal.
coronavirus has been relatively stifled down there. They've one case in Perth, and they locked the whole place down for 5 days, which may seem excessive, but they've been able to keep cases at astronomically low levels, which I applaud them from an American who doesn't have that same finances, don't have those same numbers. We applaud you, Australian governments of all the territories, to be able to keep your numbers down, but also to give us the wonderful game of footy.
Yes.
Uh, but yeah, I'm the Doggies legitimately could have the best midfield in the entire league next year if everybody can stay healthy.
So they are gonna, without a doubt, they're gonna be a team to watch next year. And shout out to my co-host Jalen Johnson. He's over on our episodic shows, more of our basketball guy, but he did pick the Doggies as his footy team, and so I don't like him. I don't like him for that, for just getting a team good like this, just right out of the bat. Kind of like how, I don't know how many of you guys watch the NHL, but the first season that the Las Vegas Golden Knights were a thing, he just became a fan of them because he wanted to get into hockey. And lo and behold, they're a brand new team that makes the Stanley Cup Finals in their first season. And so I hate him a lot. It's a love-hate, but it's a hate nonetheless. And it's not jealousy. It's not jealousy. I promise you that. I'm not jealous, Donnie. No.
I still keep messing with him. He's told me he wants to get on an episode and talk footy with us one of these times. And every time we set up to arrange last year, he'd always bail on us. So
Right? Hey, we're just going to keep bugging him, and we're going to have to get his spot to one of these things.
This is
If
my
anything,
shout out to you, man. You gotta get on an episode, whether it's the preview, whether it's round one. I don't know, man. You gotta get yourself on one of
we
these
got
episodes.
a season here, Donnie. I think we're going to be able to make it happen.
I sure hope so.
But that's going to wrap it for us with this one, ladies and gentlemen. Of course, Coach Donnie Hess, our AFL correspondent, is always a pleasure, sir. It's almost footy season, and I am really excited because I get to see the first bounce of the season for the first time ever.
Yep, you get to go through the entire 22, hopefully the entire 22 game season, and you get to ride the roller coasters that is the AFL season. It's a ball. Trust me, you will never regret 22 rounds of amazing footy before the finals. I mean, you got just a tiny bit of taste. You got to in about halfway through
got about
last year.
halfway.
You missed the first night. You missed the first rounds where you get those first 4 rounds where maybe a team like Carlton wins the first 2 or 3 and they're in the top 8, though they probably won't end up in the top 8. So
hey, let's see Adelaide. Yeah, let's get some early wins for you guys. Just had the wins. Boone. Shout out to a now hated personality by the footy group, but Pat McAfee.
Oh man, how the mighty have fallen, unfortunately.
At least he may not support it, but I still do, and he got me into this thing. So yeah.
Like I said, I respect him for what he did. The only issue I have with him is that he bailed quicker than the one guy from Titanic. So
but ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for listening to this. Thank you for all your support on Coach Johnny Hess's Donnie Disposal American AFL fans. That has been absolutely fantastic. Also, some great support for the Peggy O'Neill interview, which, even though we mentioned at the beginning of the show, a little bit of a speed bump hit that, it all turned out great, and it still worked out very well. The AFL breakdowns that Coach Johnny has also been putting out has been killing it, and it's in full swing, so check that out. Also, just to show our thanks and a little way to support the show as well, check out this fantastic tri-blend t-shirt with the words on it that got me, the tweet that got me into Australian football, Coach Johnny. Australian football is underrated. So with this shirt, you get our fantastic footy logo with "Footy is underrated," because You're damn right it is. And it's time to put a little more respect on the sport. And that's why we love your help, Donnie. Bring it to the American viewers because our Aussies, our great friends down under, they know how great this sport is. And it's just, we're just spreading the word at this point. Just spreading the word.
Definitely, for sure. And to all the Australian fans who I've reached out and talked with, thank you again so much. You guys are absolutely fair dinkum awesome. Thank you so much for the support. I definitely, I'm gonna get that shirt here really soon. I got a birthday coming up. I'm definitely gonna invest in that. I think it'd be great to have me actually wearing some of the merch for the show.
Hey, the funny thing
Definitely
is, I
going to
know
be.
it's still a little cold here in the States, especially recently with everywhere being covered in snow, even in Texas. But for you Aussies over there, I know the seasons are flip flops, so it's like summer right there, pretty much, right? Something
Mhm.
like that. So we got it ain't no Guernsey, but it is a tank top. So we got this in those tanks as well, so you can suns out, guns out. Let's get those arms rocking.
Definitely, for sure.
But Donnie, have a great rest of your day with this one, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for sticking until the end, and keep an eye out for the next AFLW round 4 breakdown, and keep an eye out for our AFL 2021 season preview because we all know it is going to be a ripper every time, and you are not going to want to miss it. But have a great rest of your day. We'll catch you later. Donnie Hass, always a pleasure. And we'll see you guys in the next one.